Come on. Ah,
everyone. Welcome back to the only podcast produced by three two-time winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award. You're tuned in to the Check Engine podcast. We're hosted on Anchor.fm, and we are streamed worldwide on all the platforms that you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. My name's Nick. Joining me, as they do every week on the opposite ends of this line, are both Andrew and Tristan. Guys, how we doing? How you guys been?
Oh, man. It's depressing that now the intro has officially changed to not sitting next to, not across the table, just on the end of a line, on the far end of
line, as they are every week.
Operator.
As they are every week.
No sad songs.
What is it? The last three? Is this 4 now we've done this way? I think so.
Yeah. I mean, this is the new normal. Don't get me wrong. It's just kind of sad.
Yeah, it is. Are you guys noticing, like, is there an activity that you guys noticed you're doing much more of since we've been stuck at home? Like, for instance, so what Claire and I have started doing is we're running through movie franchises, like movie collections. So we've done, one a day until it's through. So we've done like Lord of the Rings, we've done Harry Potter, we've done Pirates of the Caribbean. Now we're on to like Star Wars. And we're just running through like every one in order. Like, and that's something we've never done. Like just had like movie night or movie date night every night. Like, are you guys noticing, like, what are you guys doing that you didn't have time to before?
Going outside for walks exactly like a good dog 3 times a day.
You're getting walkies?
Oh, and Andrew wants walkies.
Getting walkies?
I do, and that's what I call them too.
Which it's good that the white dog is in the bedroom because he can't hear that. The black one's behind me, and she doesn't really know that word.
I was like, why would he possibly be referring to the dog that way? But now I get it.
Because I have 2, and they're different colors.
And also, if you name it, it will come.
Right, exactly. It's right behind me. For as far as I've gone, I know it maybe might sound a little cheesy, but my whole family has, relatively good access to technology thanks to my dad's in my profession. So we've been doing like family book reading where there's actually 3 locations, myself in Wisconsin, my mom in Illinois, and my sister in Georgia, and we're all stuck here, not getting together for like Easter, for example. So we usually eat dinner, and then right after, or even during, if you're not the group reading, someone is reading a book of some kind out loud, which is nice. We get to see each other, see the pets, read a book for half an hour, 40 minutes, and it's a nice way to kind of catch up. And also making dinner, even if not from scratch, even just from only partially pre-prepared ingredients. A lot of grilling. As I told Andrew this earlier today, I shouted at the sky and the rain went away, and I was able to grill this evening, which was wonderful.
Nice. Yeah, I've been out in the grill a lot too, weather permitting.
Oh, definitely. And the smoker's getting more action tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I think the reading thing sounds fun. No one ever lets me read to them, so.
Well, you should join us. Group FaceTime call. Pick a book.
I would do that.
We just had
I would actually do that.
We just had a yesterday towards the end of the working day, like 3:30, 4 o'clock. We had a virtual.
Must be nice.
A virtual team happy hour. So like everyone got on Zoom and it was the grid layout. So it was like the Brady Bunch. You could see everybody. And we had one of the people on the call prepared movie trivia. So we had like a virtual movie trivia game. So there's a lot of different creative ways to stay in touch. So the book reading thing is a cool one, though. That's a good idea.
I do like that. Actually, one thing. All right. So obviously everyone in the whole entire world is having nonstop video call meetings every week or every day. I think I had, 3 or 4 last week, which is probably pretty low. But the one thing that's starting to drive me crazy. Well, yeah. But the one thing that's starting to drive me crazy in these meetings is that you see one area or one wall of everyone else's house. And now I just want virtual tours of everybody's house.
just take me around, walk the camera around.
Yeah, during this meeting, don't sit at your desk. Carry the laptop around with you. I want to see the rest of your house.
So we did.
I want designated house tour time.
There was one call. We were on a video call where like 2 or 3 people were running behind, like another call they were on was running long or whatever. So as we were sitting there waiting, we did the what is the weirdest thing you have within 10 feet of you in the same room as you game. So that was pretty fun.
What was yours?
Mine is that, well, right behind me so that the camera sees it, like the way I'm set up at my kitchen table, is that there's that picture I have on the wall by like my breakfast bar. And it's like it's like the zoom. It's zoomed in on like the cookies. I don't know if you guys even noticed this when we were recording on my kitchen table.
Yes, I do know mining for cookies.
Yeah, the men, the construction workers breaking down the cookies with little mini jackhammers. So that shows up behind my left shoulder every video call, and everybody is asking about it now, and they think I'm like the weirdest person ever because I have this picture.
They need to know more people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, we need to do this. All right, Tristan, what's yours? No, not anyways. This is now important. Tristan, what's the weirdest thing within 10 feet of you? This is the only thing that matters.
The weirdest thing. Well, let's see. Probably for a home space, not because I work IT, it wouldn't be abnormal at work, but for a home space, an absolutely inordinate number of monitor stands disassociated from their monitors.
You have a monitor stand.
Okay, that's pretty weird.
A monitor stand graveyard.
Yeah, because they're all on arms now, because we're here forever.
Okay, that's pretty good. Andrew?
I have in my hand something I've never seen anywhere else before. An Intel Pentium 2 stuffed man. He's a little stuffed man in a bunny suit.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh wait, no, I have a better one. I have a weirder. I just saw it. I have a weirder one. It's not technically mine, but it's within 10 feet of me. It's a painting of Nicolas Cage as a baby Japanese macaque being held by his mother.
You do not have that.
I do. I will send it to you, and we can post it on Instagram. I swear to God, it's right. It's right above my demotivational poster about ambition. Sometimes the journey of 1,000 miles ends really, really badly, and it's a picture of a salmon in mid jump getting caught by a bear.
Actually, that's a good question. Something that we need to look into, and we will move into actual content right after this. But does Anchor offer us the option to put different cover pictures on each episode? We should look into that. Official note.
I don't know. I can check. Not sure if it does or not, but if it does, I know what we're doing.
If it does.
Tristan, jot this down. Now let's get to what we're actually here to talk about, because this is a car podcast.
Allegedly,
or not.
Allegedly, this is a
alleged car podcast.
So, we are, all of us all week have been saying how jazzed we were about this episode because, Andrew, I got to thank you for helping me dial this topic in, because it's something I've been noodling around in my head for like over a year, and I didn't know how to wrap myself around it.
It was all you.
So the general idea was like, people know now, obviously, the past few years, like craft beer and independent brewers and independent distilleries has been like all the rage. And I was thinking, like there are craft or independent car makers out there too. Like you think of someone like Morgan over in the UK that builds their chassis out of wood, or you think of
Well, and there's good ones too.
someone
It's
like
not just Morgan.
no, or someone like Callaway who soups up GM products, or Lingenfelter that Spiker, or even like you think of the supercars like Koenigsegg, like the $2 million cars. Like that's all they do. They do that one thing. They're not associated with a major brand. And I was trying to think like, how do we associate like craft cars with craft beer? And that didn't go over very well. So instead, what we're going to do is the three of us are each going to pretend to be a coach or craft or boutique car builder, and we are going to present what one or two models that we would focus on as a craft car builder, and we are going to get into supreme detail on this. Like this is going to get
As much as we could
real
stand.
deep. Real fast. Yes, absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody's creativity here. This is going to be cool. But first, do we have any neat car news or pace laps or anything else to touch on quick before we hop into the meat of this?
I think we've warmed up pretty well.
Nope. Let's just get to it.
Well, everything else is also just sad. Oh, actually, there's one thing. Does anybody care that manual transmissions are coming back to Mini Coopers in 2021?
I mean, when you say care, I could say like, does it directly impact me? Probably not. But I like that fact. It doesn't mean anything, I guess, but I do like it.
Yeah, the more manuals, the better. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to want to go out and buy a Mini because of that, though.
Same. All right.
Right.
That's all the news.
So, that's all the news. So, folks, we're going to put on our boutique car builder hats right after this break. All right, folks, we are back and we're about to get into tonight's main topic, which is presenting what we would build as boutique car makers. But before we do that, we'd like to remind you real quick how to get a hold of us if you do feel so inclined. So we have our very own website. It is checkenginepodcast.com. And there we have an email address associated with it. It is inbox@checkenginepodcast.com. We are also all over the socials. You can find us on Facebook, searching Check Engine Podcast. Andrew, where can they find us on Twitter?
At Check Engine Pod.
You okay there, Bal?
Yeah. No, almost died, but made it. At Check Engine Pod on Twitter.
He's here. He made it. All right, there it is. Tristan, where are we on Instagram?
Also at Check Engine Pod. I'm okay.
Good to hear. So, as you can
no
tell,
major malfunctions.
We are. So as you can tell, we're all over socials. So be sure to like, follow, share, post, direct message, reach out how and when you can. You can ask us questions to answer on the air. You can let us know what topics you like and you don't like. You can give us ideas for topics for episodes. Just reach out. We want to talk with you here. So thank you in advance. Now, to get back to the show, we are building our own coach build cars. And this is going to be really cool. Who wants to kick us off?
I think you should start, Nick.
Your idea.
It was my idea.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll get this going. So, this is I had a bunch of different options right off the bat. Like, what did I want to build? There's a bunch of things that I wanted to build, and then I started thinking about things that we have brought up a lot on the cast, like things that we have wished for. You know, whether it be any one of the three of us, and there seemed to be a common theme that I noticed, and then also that common theme is also kind of practical and affordable. So this isn't like I'm going to build a $4 million 300 mile per hour car. Like this is going to be something that's a little more practical, a little more accessible, but still super fun. So what I went about doing is creating I'll just say it this way, the ultimate hatchback, the ultimate hot hatch.
You
My
dick.
Hey, that's the risk you run by letting me lead off, Andrew.
I thought I was so positive that you were making a Corvette C7. I was so positive.
Honestly, that was my honorable mention. That was my close second. But I decided it'd be too cliche because I've been beating down that door for the last like month with every chance I got. So I was gonna step away from that for just one episode at least.
Well, at least I know I'm safe now from both of you.
Good. So Andrew, I
What?
guess we can compare our hot hatches, but
Fine. That's what we'll do.
So what I was looking at like a baseline or a starting point, I thought, was there a body style or a design language that maybe isn't being made anymore, that has been discontinued, that I really liked, that I could use as like the mold, like kind of the frame to build this thing around? And this is something, I don't know if you guys know this, but kind of a guilty pleasure of mine was the, as far as just the design of it, the looks, was the Scion TC. Remember that thing?
I did not know that about you, actually.
So I really like the fact, I loved the way, I just loved the way the design looked. And I love that even though it is a hatchback, it looked like it had like a little mini trunk. Like there was just a little lip that poked out the back. So it was just unique, even in the world of hatches. So I thought, okay, that was discontinued in 2016, 2017-ish. So like the 2017 model year isn't too old, isn't too outdated. It's still pretty relevant. That is going to be my shell, and that is going to be my frame that I'm going to build my hot hatch around. So
you could probably buy the tooling from Toyota too.
That's
Probably.
That's what I'm saying. Like when we mentioned Andrew before Tristan hopped on, how like this could be feasible. Someone could buy the tooling from Toyota and do this. Like,
I mean, yeah, they probably could.
So let's just real quick, let's just go over what, at the time of being discontinued, some quick specs and features of what the Scion TC had, right? So it was available manual or auto. It was a front wheel drive, 180 horsepower, 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. It did have keyless entry. It had a 7-inch touchscreen on the dashboard. It was Bluetooth and voice control capable. So a lot of those things were pretty cool. Like a lot of those things are pretty nice. What it didn't have was a great interior. It was shit. The driver's seat was manual adjustments. Like that kind of stuff we need to change. So, how are we going to upgrade this then? Starting again with the TC body and Toyota frame. Obviously, we're going to update the interior. It's not going to be plastic. You know, we're going to add combination of leather, maybe with micro suede inserts, and you'll see why I'm doing that in a little bit. We got to do power to both seats. There's not just going to be manual seat adjustments. With memory, so you can, you know, have a setting and just hit like 1 or 2 or whatever it is, and it'll automatically adjust. Obviously, we're going to bring in Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. We've got the 7-inch monitor. Let's put a backup camera in it. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then, because this is a Toyota product, I'm bringing in anything TRD that fits to the chassis and frame, not drivetrain related. And I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to use the TRD lowering springs and TRD sway bar, the TRD braking system, the TRD 10-spoke or 7-spoke rims. There's 2 different types of rims that my customers will have to choose from. We're going to obviously add all-wheel drive to it. This is going to be an all-wheel drive car. And I found these little side skirts that someone made like one-off. They look like little mini splitters and running boards. They're like $150, like a third party. We're going to offer those as well, standard, because the thing looks awesome. Once it's lowered, you got the splitter. It looks really, really racy. So Toyota TRD stuff all the way through. I mentioned it's going to be all-wheel drive. So this car, as it sits, the trim levels are going to change by the type of engine that we put in it. So for my lower tier, my option 1 trim, I haven't named this, by the way. I haven't named any of the trims. I haven't named the car. The first engine I'm going to put in for the lower trim is going to be the 1.6 liter Turbo 4 hybrid that can be found in the upcoming Kia Sorento. It's got 227 combined horsepower. 60 of that comes from the battery. Okay. We move up to the second tier, and now I'm going to use the 2.5 liter Subaru Boxer engine. And it's going to be the GT spec. It's a flat 4 turbo, 265 horsepower. And then finally, my third option, my third tier, is going to be the 2.5, same engine, but in the STI spec, which pushes out 305 horsepower. So at the top end, you can have a 305 horsepower hot hatchback if you so choose. This is going to be a coach build. I'm not going to offer like any standard colors. So if you want it lime green, if you want it, highlighter yellow, if you want it purple, if you want it orange, whatever.
I like highlighter yellow.
Tell me,
hard.
Actually, yeah.
That'd be hard. That'd be hard to see, actually, but it'd be funny.
Well, like from the IMSA races, like the Volt racing car.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that color.
So
or if you just want standard black or silver, whatever you want, I'll paint it for you. It's fine. Just tell me what you want. Give me the swatch, and I'll match it. So the interior, though, the leather you can choose is going to be black, is going to be gray, or it's going to be beige. But the inserts and the stitching in the seats and the seat belts are going to be made to match your exterior color. So you want that highlighter yellow, maybe black leather interior with that highlighter yellow stitching, seat belts, and inserts in the seats, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think using the looks from the Scion TC lowered with some racy splitter and side skirt bits, the TRD lowering spring sway bar brake system, all-wheel drive, turbocharged engine, a hybrid option, I've got a solid coach-built hot hatch for people to enjoy.
That's fair.
Did you also notice that TRD put out a supercharger for the original base engine for the TC?
They did, but I wanted to update the drivetrain for something that's easily to fit into an all-wheel drive system. So the Sorento is all-wheel drive. The Subarus are all-wheel drive. So I just wanted to make it as close to plug and play as possible, because I was trying to think of actually, like, if I'm actually building this, keep the cost down type of thing. So I knew about the supercharger. I decided to go with different sourcing for the powertrain. So body and chassis, brakes, everything from Toyota, and then we'll source elsewhere for the engine and transmission. So each one of these options can come in manual or auto. If you want an auto, I would obviously lean towards a manual version, but that's just me.
That's interesting. I like that. I like getting the tooling from a recently discontinued car. That never occurred to me.
Yeah, me neither.
Well,
I've got others that are like existing as a design that I kind of want to use as like a way to better envision it, basically, but not actually like go get the tooling.
Well, and that's okay too, because there are people out there. There are these coach builders who, like Shelby, for instance, they just take Mustangs and outfit them. So like people do that.
Yeah.
And then I just thought of going, recently discontinued. I looked at the Saturn Sky also as like a roadster, maybe. So I was going to offer maybe a second model, but I thought, let's just focus on the hatch at first. Let's just get that. And then, phase 2, we'll do maybe a roadster or something like that.
Oh man, such a cool idea based off of what you just brought here. Imagine if someone had come in and said they were going to get the tooling from the Holdens, like the Maloo and whatever their V8 car was. Oh man,
the
Commodore, of course, the Commodore.
That was one of my options.
That would have been such a good idea.
So I was looking at
Oh, that's
Holden.
such a good
I was
idea.
looking at the Scion. I was looking at yes, the C7 because it's discontinued. I was looking at
We know.
the Saturn Sky. All of that. Like I had like 3 or 4, but the whole thing was like what was recently discontinued that like they haven't destroyed all of the tooling for. Like it could just be like
That's a really
almost
good
a
idea.
turnkey manufacturing plant. And I can make my own
I like
badge
that.
and
I
own
like
name
that a
and
lot.
brand it how I wanted it to. But yeah, that's mine. It's based on a Scion TC and it's just souped up.
That's a good idea. Oh, man. Well, I'll go right into mine then. So for mine, I was thinking of, well, where the idea started, right? The craft brewery, which is at its
Yes.
core a higher quality small batch version of whatever it is at the main market for the, which would supposedly be for the discerning customer, whoever that might be.
Sure.
I don't
Of
know.
course.
Never met one.
Correct.
A gentleman of taste.
Yeah, a gentleman of taste. So
Who are they?
I literally have no idea. So I thought, why don't we take that idea and combine it with what's happening in the world right now? If you look at the compact SUV, that's a pretty big market, but it's also really boring. It's really empty. And my next thought was, okay, if you look at the reality of a compact SUV, or I mean, the difficulty is compact SUVs are usually built on subcompact cars, but you get what I'm saying. It would technically be a mid-sized small SUV and a compact car. They're the same. The only thing that changed, they're made in the same production line at the same time. They come out as their equivalent cars, and the only difference is the bodywork. So why are none of these smaller companies leveraging the cash cow of the SUV to build that alongside their car and hopefully point the brand in the direction that they want to go using that extra money? Because you can upsell the SUV for $5 or $7 or even $10,000 more just because you have a little lift kit on it.
Yep.
Right.
So that's where I started. And I thought,
Okay.
My favorite kind of car, what if it was a hatchback and an SUV?
Ooh.
So they would be built on the same chassis, using the same engine, the same transmission, and have as many other shared parts as possible. So seating and all the electronics would obviously be the same. You would probably want to point the SUV more towards luxury, quote unquote, and the hatchback more towards like the raw speed. People at a certain point will pay for you to remove things from their hot hatch, which is neat.
Yeah, sporty discs.
Yeah.
This is good. I like where this is going.
With the concept, I thought, okay, blank slate. If you were to cast your mind around the actual automotive world, what parts could you realistically acquire to make this happen? What individual pieces could you buy and put together?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as in all things, the answer starts in China.
Yep.
So, it's kind of interesting. A while ago, I think I may even have talked about it on the podcast. I stumbled upon a SUV that was supposedly like the first ever SUV made in Ghana in Africa. And I saw pictures of it and I was like, yeah, I saw pictures of it, I was like, holy shit, that's like a whole car. Like that's a actual car, like sheet metal, engines. They were showing whole assemblies of V6s and V8s being made in like a back lot in Africa, which is incredibly impressive. But as horrible as this may sound, that's like very complicated manufacturing for an area that's not known to have the infrastructure to support it. So looking into it more, Kantanka is far from the only manufacturer to use something called knockdown kits. And if you go to Alibaba right now and look up knockdown kits, you can buy anything from a wheel to a whole ass car shipped to you in order for you to weld it together.
Damn, really?
So I thought, all right. Oh yeah. Knockdown kits. Yep. So I thought, all right, that's a good place to start. Yeah, Alibaba. You can, or you can literally just buy the factory space, and they will produce the car. It's so, the stuff on that website is so bizarre. But anyways, that's my starting place. I thought, all right, if I'm really going to do this, then let's find parts that are as realistic as possible from manufacturers that offer something like this. And that's when I stumbled upon a company called Chery or Chery, I'm not really sure, Chery, a Chinese car company that makes a car called the Quaros 3. Now, this car, the Quaros 3, comes in various flavors. There's a hatchback, there's an SUV, and there's a sedan. But most critically, this is the first car to ever be made in mainland China to get a 5-star safety rating in the Euro NCAP. So the chassis itself is quite solid. And there are other manufacturers now that are accomplishing the same thing, like SsangYong out of South Korea, SAIC and Dongfeng out of China as well. They now have these multiple use chassis that score well, which is a great accomplishment because it didn't used to be that way. They used to get shipped to Europe and they would get like 3 stars.
Yeah, they would. I mean, if you're lucky.
Yeah. So there's a quality there. And while there aren't necessarily knockdown kits for these specific models, a lot of these companies offer knockdown kits. So I'm thinking you could probably make a deal with one of these companies to get these chassis, just the bare bones chassis. The ideal for something like this would be to get a piece of that MQB pie. But I feel like that might not happen.
Yeah, that might be a little tough.
I don't think VW is given that. However, so we have the chassis, we have the base for our 2 cars. The next part was actually the easiest one to find. If you have this nice chassis, you must stuff a very nice transmission in it. And like I said, there's only one choice. It has to be the ZF 8DT. So that's the double clutch 8-speed ZF transmission. The one that was co-developed with Porsche. It's
8-speed. Okay.
8-speed. So it's hybrid capable. What? That's what?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's the option.
Definitely. Hybrid capable, all-wheel drive, related to I think it was the 918 and allegedly the C8. You really can't do better. And off the shelf, so looking at the off-the-shelf cost of the 7 was around $4,000. So I'm thinking this one would probably be a little more, let's say $6,000. It's been out for 3 or 4 years. Most of the kinks have been worked out. And it's the upgrade from the 7, which is causing all the problems in the Fiats and Jeep especially. I think I would want it to be all-wheel drive. And the tricky part is finding an all-wheel drive system that works with that transmission, because while it is broadly capable, to get it to work with the 8DT, the ZF transmission, it has to be a center diff. So it has to be something like Mitsubishi's AWC system. And I'm wondering if you could get a piece of that AWC or develop something very similar to it to do your front wheel drive. I mean, then not only are you bringing in a hot hatch, you're also edging in on that Evo territory that I miss so very, very much, which would be fantastic. So the next piece is actually one that I thought for sure Nick was going to go for this. And of course, now we're at the engine. So we have the transmission, we have the driveline. Now we got to put something in it. And I can't believe he didn't say this, but there's an engine on the market right now that is allegedly one of the best made. It is a 4-cylinder. It is a turbo. Honda sells the K20C1 out of the Type R as a crate motor. They just sell it. You can just go buy it. The 306 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque, You can just go buy that for like
Damn.
$6,500. It's not even that expensive. I mean,
really?
yeah. I can't think of a better engine to put in a hot hatch. I mean, I think the ideal situation would be to get the engine and detune it, because you don't want to go with that fight against the Honda right away. You don't want that comparison. You don't want anyone to make it. So maybe if you get something a little more relaxed, something around the Accord tuning, which is 252, 275, maybe make it like an even 280 across the board. I think that's probably what you want, because Honda probably doesn't want the hot hatch competition, but also you can relax the engine and hopefully get a little better reliability out of it.
Sure.
My initial thought was to go for Hyundai engines, because a generation of engines ago, Hyundai started offering their 2.0 and 3.8 engines, the ones that were in the Genesis, their racing engines, as crates. However, they haven't caught up to offer their current racing engine, which is a 2.0 out of the N, as a crate. Or maybe they won't, or maybe because they're doing so well in racing, they're just like, no.
We're gonna keep this to ourselves for a while.
Yeah. But either way, I mean, that Honda engine seems to be doing just fine in racing too.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a really good
I was
choice
also
for the
thinking
engine.
that. Oh, thanks. I was also thinking an option for the SUV side could be, which they also still sell, the venerable 3.5 liter EcoBoost, which has been around for, I mean, it's got to be what, 10 years now?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
I like a 6-cylinder, and I think that might, especially if you do if there were to be a luxury edition of the SUV, I really think you would have to do a 6-cylinder in that, because as you know, the more cylinders you have, the more wealth you have.
Right. Cylinders are directly tied to wealth, wealth and comfort.
Yes, they are one wealth.
I would go with 8 wealths. Why not?
eight welds. I thought about that, but if you're in a compact body, you would have to do some pretty intense transverse trickery to get something like, well, maybe you could do an LS. I don't know. I'm sure Bozy would know, but you might be able to do a small block V8.
Cram the 4.2 liter Audi V8 in there. They got it in an S4.
Oh my God, they did. Now,
you had to take the engine out and change the spark plugs.
See, that's what I would want to avoid. I would want to keep it somewhat reasonable. I mean, the 4-cylinder is probably a good place to start, and I do think the EcoBoost is probably the next logical step. Also, there is something to be said in terms of a branding or advertising thing, that it's the engine out of the Ford Raptor. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, racing, but trucks.
Ooh.
So that's our basic setup. We have the chassis from China. We have the Honda engine. We have the ZF transmission, and that would be the launch setup. So it would be, one engine to start with the one transmission. But the next thing, so obviously petrol only engines. But a future plan would be to use something, and I can't believe this is already out there, but I think sometime in maybe the summer or early fall of last year, I mentioned how Borg Warner bought an electric car racing company and an electric car transmission company. And they quickly merged them together. And Borg Warner right now has a full array of hybrid parts that are absolutely 100% bolt-in ready. Everything from the batteries to, they have every piece if you want, or you can bring your own batteries, blah, blah, blah. But the HVH series is the one I was looking for. It's a hybrid motor that would, I don't know realistically how drop-in it is. That's definitely how they advertise it. That would be my goal, to go with something along that line, to make hybrids out of these cars with the DCT, to kind of prove the concept.
Okay.
Because it's definitely possible. And from everything that I've found and researched, it could be done right now. We know brands are bringing it up, but they're not using the off-the-shelf parts. That's kind of the difference. That's kind of the disconnect between, someone like VW, who has obviously a working relationship with people like Borg Warner and these big companies. There are off-the-shelf parts available, but they don't want to do that. They want to build their own, which is what they should do. But I think looking at the marketplace, it would be possible for them to be manual or DCT hybrid performance cars right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see why not, because we've already had hybrid manual cars. It's just making them performance cars. That's the only difference. So
exactly.
All right. So those would be the cars, but I didn't stop there. I also thought, what would I want this to do? Where would I want this to go? What's the target? Who would help you get there? So my thought is, and I'm surprised we haven't seen this yet. I'm sure we will. It seems like no one in motorsport is really talking about how Hyundai went from releasing the Rally Veloster, the Rally Spec Veloster, whatever they called it, which is a joke, like 6 years ago, to winning TCR in a very short amount of time. But they did it by starting with very small races. They started with, essentially like slalom events. They brought the Veloster Rally Edition to the like local SCCA events. And then they jumped into rally. And then they started doing independent teams. You know what I mean? Like they built themselves into racing. And I would love to be able to do the same thing with this brand. So launch it and set a target for a TCR entry date in the next rule set. Whatever that looks like, whatever that might be, get your cars ready to be homologated into TCR. Because it works, especially if you win.
It does work. The one issue to that plan, not to be negative Nancy here, is TCR is front wheel drive. Like that's a rule. So if you have to, so you're making an all wheel drive car, correct?
Yes, that is true. But
so I mean, you can make a front wheel drive version of it.
Right. You can race spec them. I mean, look at the Audis.
Yeah, I was going to say the Audis as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Like you can make a front wheel drive version of it. That's fine. But just one word of caution, but it's a great idea.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing along. I mean, I don't know if you're required to, but I think most people use a different transmission. Like the X-Track is, I think, the most common transmission there. Like, I don't think a lot of people are racing ZFs because they're heavy. But yeah, yes. I mean, I think that's a decently realistic target for a company starting with off-the-shelf parts and wanting to kind of merge into a mainstream. I'm so staggered at the success of Hyundai in starting at a joke and ending with a championship in a very short amount of time.
Right. No, and they did it the right way. They focused on, they didn't try to bite off more than they could chew right off the bat. Like, we're going to master one thing. We're going to get to a place where we're comfortable. We're going to take what we learned and we're going to apply it to the next step. So like, yeah, you can take yours and you can start auto-crossing it. If you want to market it, you can probably try to look up SCCA's website and find like the point standings, the national point standings for autocross, and reach out to those guys who are finishing in the top 5 and like, hey, do you want to help me develop this car? And now you have like a quote unquote influencer who's in that space and like it gets you a little cred, like you can do it a bunch of different ways.
And that's something that there's always been, like, even, that's what the big famous movie recently was about. I mean, that's what Carroll Shelby did, was make race cars using other people's cars. And they're like, hey, you should make one for us.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I never thought about that. But yeah. I would also take one other thing from Hyundai, and that is a person. Elizabeth Curran is the name of Hyundai's. What?
Yoink.
Yeah.
Kidnapping's
That
illegal.
is well, that is a Hyundai tactic. You find the good people and then you pay them more.
That's fair.
But yeah, Elizabeth Kern is the name of Hyundai's senior interior design manager. She's just been featured in a few articles that I happened to see on Twitter, but she's actually a really good person to highlight. So Elizabeth Curran, Curran, everyone look her up. She is basically responsible for everything that's been good in Hyundai's interiors for the past couple of years. So she did the interior on the Kona, the G80, the new Veloster, the Nexo, the Santa Fe. She was a key component of doing like the denim style interior on the Venue, like the little touches, the knurling on the knobs and the stuff in like the Genesis that kind of bumps it up in quality. She's been responsible for all of that. And those tiny little things, she obviously understands the impact of doing little things right to make the visual quality jump up simply. And I think that's great. And she also really likes new and different materials and colors, which is obviously I'm all about that. I want different color interiors. I want interesting designs and interesting techniques done on, like across the top of the dash and stuff. I want all of that. And there's just no one better right now.
That's very good. I never thought to start looking up people. Never, ever, ever.
Like I said, I kind of went deep. But it doesn't stop there, because if we're designing the interior, we have to design the exterior. Sure. And one thing I learned is that Chris Bangle is now working for Samsung. And that made me laugh because I thought that explains the Samsung Galaxy Edge. He flame surfaced a goddamn phone and made the Edge.
And that's what you get.
Yeah, right.
It seems like it seems like a waste of his talents.
I know, but it's probably a big paycheck.
Oh, totally.
Can't fault him for that. But here's a name that you might not know, but you should. There's a man named Ian Callum, a Scottish guy who's worked in cars for a while. He is, I don't know if he's looking for a job, but he just recently left his position at Jaguar. Would you like to know what's in his portfolio?
Oh, please.
He designed the XK, the XF, the F-Type and the F-Pace, the Nissan R390, the Escort Cosworth, and the RS200, and most critically, he designed the DB9 and the Vanquish. And his brother is the vice president of design at Ford. He designed maybe the two cars that have a legitimate shot to be the most beautiful car of all time.
Blank check. Blank fucking check to that man.
He can even consult for
number,
5 minutes.
Design me Yep. Write your own number, design me a car.
I'll take any input. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that it's like you said, Nick, before we actually started the podcast. The crazy thing about this is obviously we're just talking completely out of our ass, pure nonsense, pure insanity. But something about putting the bits together in your own brain makes it seem like someone could actually do this.
Like we could come up with a deck and a business presentation and sit Elizabeth and Ian down in a room. And like, it's feasible it could happen with some investors. Like if we go to someone and say, hey, we've got Elizabeth Curran and Ian Callum, and this is what we're trying to do. There might be some people who buy into that.
No, seriously, believe me.
I wish. And of course, the one thing, I mean, Nick, as a coach builder, is able to offer any colors. But on my line, I would also like to offer as wide a range of colors as is feasible. But the trick is you have to satisfy the boring people, right? So say you get 5 or 6 colors max for a startup, and you got to do white, black, silver, and then you only have
Red.
2 left. Then you have to do a red, and so you only have 1 color. Green. It has to be dark green. I need more dark green cars. That has to be the 5th color, dark green.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Well, especially if you have Ian Callum on your team, it's good. You have to honor him with British Racing Green.
That's right. Respect the man.
With all of his work on Jaguar and Aston Martin, yes, you need British Racing Green in your portfolio.
1,000,000%. But yeah, I mean, that's my little slice of insanity. I guess overall, you'd eventually want to take as much design and engineering in house as you possibly could, but it weirdly seems like there are bits and pieces out there you could cobble together a pretty good or even fantastic hot hatch out of parts that are in some sense off the shelf.
And I love how you took it a step further. Like, I stopped at the hot hatch. I'm going to work on this one thing and I'm going to do it really well. But you said too, you saw the opportunity. Hey, all we got to do is lift this a little bit and then we can upcharge as an SUV. That's brilliant. You don't have to change anything else. Just air up the tires a little more, make it ride higher.
Yeah, a little 2-inch lift is a world of difference
to a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
That's an awesome idea.
And I didn't think to name anything also, but
did you think?
I think I might have
I didn't think of a name.
Did you spend any time thinking about like retail price? And Tristan, this is a question for you too to get before you get into yours.
I did actually. The target would be somewhere in the, ideally what I'd like to see is the hatchback in the, I think I would like to sell the hatchback as a loss leader to put it up against the N. So in that probably 30,000 to 35, and then upcharge the SUV, but extend that range probably 35 to 45.
Sure. Yeah, see, I thought about
I don't
it a
even know
little
if
bit
that's
too on
possible.
my end. Yeah, I don't know either. Like, and I just realized, like, looking back at my notes, I probably lowballed myself. Like my initial thought.
What'd you say?
My lowest trim with the 1.6 liter hybrid from the Sorrento, I was thinking somewhere around 24, 25, and then up to low 30s for the third option. I think I could probably bump $5,000 on each tier and it'd be comfortable.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I initially really lowballed myself. I'll be like the Walmart of hot hatches, just basement prices, but sell a zillion.
Right. But that's kind of where it all falls apart, right? When we're talking about the possibility. I mean, theoretically, looking at the list of parts that I created, it's feasible that a car like the one I described could be sold for $30,000 to $35,000. It's possible, especially if you're taking a loss at the low end. But that doesn't take into account the engineering of fitting all these parts together and that. But that's no one wants to talk about that. That's not fun. That's not funny.
No, that's
no
not
one
fun.
Cares.
Let's let Tristan. No, that's not fun or funny or interesting.
Which is why I didn't do it.
So Tristan, you barely said anything for the last hour. Let's let you have your moment in the sun here. What are you bringing to the table?
Okay, so as you heard, I didn't care one whit about whether this was even engineeringly feasible, much less what the cost would be. I'm going to kind of look at it from a McLaren standpoint and say, I'm going to do something. Let's figure out how.
I love it.
However, the end result will be probably the furthest thing from McLaren ever made. So
you're making a boat?
So, well, no, because I think they might have actually helped make one of those at some point, like everybody else.
Shit, you're
at the top of the funnel. Tristan has McLaren. At the bottom end, it's a Lada.
Yep. Yeah. So, but yeah. So that's so mine actually is. I drew inspiration from a couple things. I for one feel that the Chevy Volt is was criminally treated by GM as a fantastic idea, a notably superior alternative to a lot of basic hybrids. And as a type of plug-in hybrid, it was unique in that it used the engine as a generator, not as a direct motive force. So you could get away with a pretty significantly small engine and get relatively good gas mileage while still maintaining the 30, 40, 50 mile pure electric range that was available at the time. I think batteries have come way further than that. So our baseline distance, I was hoping to get 60 to 70 miles electric out of what I'm doing. So that was the kind of the base design. And then secondarily, I took a lot of, I was looking at how Porsche built or is building the electric Cayenne. And the electric Cayenne does away with a lot of weirdly traditional things like starter motors and low voltage systems and everything else. It basically runs everything through the high voltage system that runs the battery, that runs the electric motors, the electric drive motors. So what I was looking at is creating an SUV slash truck platform kind of built on those nuggets of knowledge. That's where I was coming from. So there are going to be a couple different overall body styles using hopefully the same drivetrain. And then the second body style will actually end up having 2 trim levels. So the first one that I'm going to go with is, in my opinion, a little bit less interesting to me. It's going to be a more traditional, quote unquote, full size. It's not giant like a Suburban or even a Tahoe. It's going to be more probably Ford Explorer, Jeep Grand Cherokee sized. And that's going to have basically, I couldn't find a term for them. Everybody keeps calling them plug-in hybrids, but we know that plug-in hybrids are just Priuses that you charge at your house and get some EV miles out of them, and then they run on gas like a regular hybrid does. So I'm going to call them generator hybrids. And that's going to be my term for it, I guess. And so it's going to be this kind of unibody based, biggerish SUV. And then there's going to be 2 forms of that: the luxury and the sport. The sport will obviously have significantly, all the cliche stuff: wider tires, lower, stiffer suspension, and then go as far as to attempt to even like do things like, because it's the sport version and there's not even a pretense of taking this thing off road, everybody just wants a fast SUV, kind of how Jeep made the SRT8 Grand Cherokee. It's like, it's not trail rated. It's still a Grand Cherokee, but it's the only one that's not trail.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. The SRT8, the Trackhawk, those aren't trail rated. So the whole thing can be a little bit lower. You can even move things like the battery lower down in the unibody, and cross members and stuff. You don't have to worry about those getting in the way of being on a road. So move the whole center of gravity lower, lower your EV range for more output to the batteries. So that would probably be in the 35-ish miles, probably have it. So you get more torque, higher speed out of the electric motors. And then after that, the good thing is that for the most part, when the generator is running, it's going to chop off the battery and then kick off. So even if it runs 5, 6, 7 extra minutes to charge the battery, you're not going to need a different engine to charge the battery all the way across the line. So the sport version will have the same engine that the rest of these will have, and I'm actually going with the 1 liter 3-cylinder EcoBoost.
Okay.
All right.
So, and that's going to be all the way through, and that's going to be the kind of sporty SUV. Like Nick, all of these are going to be kind of bespoke because I think the costs are going to be really high. So there's not going to be a standardized, type of look here. It's going to be like, yeah, just let me know what color it is because I got to mix up some paint anyway. So
I'll just be back here in the paint booth. You just let me know when you're ready.
Just let me know what you want. So that's the sport one. And then there's going to be the kind of more luxury one, which for whatever reason, as we've seen with like the Lexus version of the Land Cruiser and the G Wagon and stuff like that, there's a certain amount of when they are luxury vehicles, people also do kind of weirdly expect them to at least tell you that they would go off road, even if they're never going to take them there. Um,
Yeah.
so that one will be, higher springs, narrower, taller sidewall tires. The battery won't be as low. Things like that, and the output to the wheels will be less, so you'll get more EV range. Because also, everybody in a luxury SUV really, really likes being green, despite buying an SUV. Um, they like to be able to wave that flag around. So that would be the kind of luxury one. Again, not a lot of detail there because it's going to be like, okay, you want Napa leather, you want, the finest rich Corinthian leather, whatever you'd like. We can build that for you, and color wise, as well. And then what I'd like to move on to is kind of where this actually all started. I thought, okay, let's start with this because it's the first thing that popped to mind, and see how we can move that drivetrain into these other two vehicles. Actually, it's an actual off-roader
Okay.
with full-on intent of being taken off-road almost exclusively. Things like the Unimog pop to mind. Something slightly smaller that was of interest is actually, where did my notes go? Yeah, the Volvo C303. And all these have a couple characteristics in common. They are portal axle cab over design, so they have a ton of clearance. That's where the engineering question comes into mind. And because you've got wheel motors, portal axles, and wheel motors, I'm not sure how that would work. My thought would maybe be either some kind of, we discussed this, Andrew, I think you looked up the some companies making drop-in electric motors, where you can put in a
Yeah.
regular engine bay and hook it up to a transmission, all that kind of stuff. That would be an option. Or I was looking into available electric motor technologies, and not hub motors, but actually in wheel motors, where they're actually entirely contained within the diameter of the rim. And that would be
Okay.
something that might do the trick. And this one would be hopefully being an off-roader, it would be the longest pure electric range, lowest speed, kind of a long, drawn-out use of the battery, and on one end with this versus a short, powerful kick to the nuts draw on the on the sporty version. Um, and depending on how this one would be set up, I did start to look at transmissions in case it had to be a drop-in situation where you're basically running an electric motor in the engine bay. And I came to the conclusion of actually the 8-speed automatic ZF, not the dual clutch. I think a torque converter hooked up to an electric motor might fare better than an actual clutch hooked up to an electric motor. It might be a little bit too immediately torquey for that kind of thing. Although I did consider the dual clutch, so I was like, I don't know if that'll work or not. So 8-speed automatic ZF, really well tested in high use situations. For example, in like the 1500 Ram and the Grand Cherokee, they when put into tow haul, they do their job. The other benefit to that would be, and this is where my research kind of fell flat, is whether you really need something like a low range gearbox on an electric motor, or if that's something that you can change the programming of the motor, as all that torque is available right away in an electric motor. You don't need to gear it down to usually to get even more torque. I took reference from a lot of electric Wrangler builds, and watching them quite literally scamper all over any kind of liquid fuel powered Wranglers, diesels, gas, whatever. I was like, okay, this would be great for an off-roader, but then it's only great in that context for like, okay, we're going to do a Jeep Jamboree. The whole trail is 12 miles. Your batteries are going to run out by the time you're done and you put it on the trailer and take it home. So that was actually the genesis of kind of pulling that 1 liter 3-cylinder and turning it into a generator to extend your range essentially forever. The goal of this one would be something that you guys love making fun of me for. Overland,
I
overlanding
knew it.
overlanding / boondocking.
He was going to find a way to work that in. I knew it.
Yep. But that does bring up some.
Will these come
potentially-
outfitted with camping gear on them? Like, are you gonna have like a pop-up tent that sticks off the back or anything?
Potentially, yes. That would be able to be spec'd. However, what did pop to mind is all of the ways to tie in the electrical system to that. So something that I did kind of chuckle at as like, how useful is that when we were discussing our configurator builds with the Defender is the that like weirdly like you pressurize it with your tap water pressure and you've got like 2 minutes of water. Like, well, you've got an electric car. It has a giant battery inside of it, and one of the most common things used in overlanding are these big awnings that stick straight off the side of your vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Included in this vehicle would be 2 of them, and they are actually rollable solar panels.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
So obviously every day when you're driving, you'd be able to charge the battery, and like they do even in like their Tacomas and stuff, you can always flip it on and charge the battery if you need to if you're parked in one place long enough. But a lot of these guys also have solar setups that keep these batteries charged that they use, and they're using just like Optima car batteries. When you think about the available energy in a big lithium ion or lithium polymer in an electric car, then you start talking about like, okay, well, I can run my fridge for 2.5 weeks without having to turn the car on, and that's without solar panels, like that kind of thing. So that's, I was like, okay, we'll get solar panels on there to top up the batteries. Ideal solution, you park at the end of your day, if you've got like a 50-60 mile electric range, you're not going that fast or that far off-road. You can actually potentially maintain yourself purely electric the whole trip as long as you've got good sun visibility, or at the very least you're using a very little bit of gas to top up your batteries every couple days or so. I think that would be something that would be beneficial for that type of thing. And then you could sell and work with this is where I really delved into a lot of stuff, is selling the accessories to the car. I think I took a good look at some of the engineering, and I feel like sound may be, a bit too strong of a word, but I think that the engineering is theoretically possible to do a generator hybrid vehicle that can span from a true off-roader to even a like luxury / sport SUV. In each of those contexts, you have things that can utilize the onboard power generation. Most cars, you're already using so much of the engine's capacity to generate motive force that putting a big alternator and stuff on there can be a big hit to fuel economy, things like that. I think that might be a little bit different in this case. So you could work with accessory manufacturers in whatever segment you're working in, either like boondocking, off-roading. They have these incredibly efficient refrigerators that can keep stuff frozen out in the middle of nowhere for weeks, running off of a car battery that's occasionally run when they go somewhere. It's not like it needs to be plugged into mains power or anything. Get one of those that can be chilled and set up in your house, and then has a docking space in the back where you can click it in and it automatically connects it to the car's power system and stuff like that. That's my primary example, obviously combined with all the requisite off-road lights, camping lights, water pump instead of the pressurized by the mains water thing the Land Rover had, that kind of stuff. In the off-roading one, in the luxury one, you could use it to power things like full on massage chairs, not just kind of the I've been I've been in like luxury SUVs that have like the quote unquote massaging seats, and it's like the $20 shiatsu pillow from Walgreens. You could really hook up a really nice massage chair. All sorts of computing things, networking, Wi-Fi, all hooked up to the high voltage battery system. For the sporty one, I think that would be kind of like Andrew, you mentioned, you get to a point where people actually will pay you to take things out of the car. And I think that that's where that one could potentially get, is that you're not buying accessories. That battery is dedicated to one thing and one thing only, and that's making the car go faster. And
Mm-hmm.
it opens up everything from you've got a built-in sound system and TV for the tailgate, you've got lights for a construction site, you've got 110 various amperage power to power things like tools. You could even do like a tradesman version of the off-road one where the suspension's not so high, and you've got even an even bigger battery in it that can power all of your tools at a job site, that kind of thing. I think the possibility of using your high voltage car battery system paired with an efficient internal combustion engine can drive the car anywhere you want to go, and then also have it do all sorts of stuff. And the kind of the crux of this whole brand is, what do you do with the power that's available to you? So I know you guys didn't think of names. I did. Who knows? Maybe it's cheesy.
Oh, here we go. Drum roll.
I just went looking, as I think other car manufacturers have done before me, for names that sound cool and do mean something, but don't always necessarily have a personal relationship to themselves. I was looking up words for power.
Okay.
Not electricity, not the beaten to death Tesla tie-in, all that stuff, just power. And I found the Lithuanian word for power is Galia. Galia.
Sounds schmancy.
That's actually it sounds fancy and elegant. It's got a decent ring to it.
So that would be the brand name. I haven't come up with model names yet, but that would be the brand name, would be Galia.
That's actually pretty cool.
Now, see, I think with that name, you could just go with like the A1, A2 type iteration for names. I really think you could be pretty lazy with that name because it sounds so fancy.
I drive a Galia. Which one? Does it matter?
Take the Galia. No.
Yeah.
It's actually a really unique concept and a really unique idea and a very cool name. I will give you that. I really, really like that. But the one thing that's sticking in my head is how many thousands of tons is this going to weigh?
Well, the trick is gonna be when you're dealing with, instead of a V8, a battery, and with most electric cars, the weight is usually down low. The off-road version is actually where I would worry about it the most. The luxury one, I wouldn't worry about it at all. And the sport one, you worry about it slightly, but then you look at the curb weights of like the Taycan and the Model S, and you're like, yeah, okay, it's fine. Like,
that is true, actually.
So I did consider it. You'd have to consider balance, especially in the off-road version. But putting all that weight down relatively low, compared to like where an engine is mounted in a Wrangler, I think you may get some. I think you're going to be actually less tippy up until the point where you tip, and then it's a catastrophe because you're not going to be able to get yourself flipped back over again.
Yeah, that's super true.
On the bright side with electric, they're not as top heavy because, like you said, all the
Right.
weight is down low, so
Exactly.
not as
And
tippable as say a Jeep.
if you do tip yourself over and the engine happens to be running at that, you could even put in like a tip sensor that cuts the engine because it doesn't need it to be on. It's just charging the battery. But even if you do, damage the engine, you could at least get yourself a few miles to some safer spot just on the batteries. But that was where I went on this. It was like, build yourself what you really, really want. And I think that's kind of what we all did.
Yeah.
And I paid no attention. I paid no attention to whether this was even feasible or not.
Yeah, I don't know about the feasibility, but it's a really good idea. Just like use alternate power sources, not just to get you from A to B, but to do whatever it is you need to do when you get there.
Right.
Like,
yep.
That is
I think that's
very,
great.
very unique. I think it's a fantastic concept, man. That's really cool.
Well, thank you. As you guys heard before the show, I was a little worried about my content. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna fly. We'll see what these guys think. But I was worried. I feel like I got in the weeds of unimportant details, but we'll see.
Here's the ironic part. Like, you, before the mics were hot, you were saying, or maybe after we turned this, after, like, in the intro, you were talking about like your extreme lack of creativity. I would argue that yours was the most creative vehicle that was brought to the table.
Yeah, there we go.
Like, I used an existing shell. Like, my car.
Yeah,
my car is going to look like a Scion TC when it's done. It's just that the innards are changed. It's not that creative.
Well, mine's going to look like a Volvo or a Grand Cherokee. So, I mean,
but that's not too bad.
I've been going back. I'm impressed with both you guys. Like, you.
Oh, thanks.
This was a really cool exercise because, like, we came from like completely different places. Andrew and I, you and I were pretty close with the hatch thing, but you took it a different direction. Tristan was deep thoughts, delivered as promised
all day,
but like way out of left field.
But all in all, like, I would be stoked to see actual press releases on all of these, and hopefully our listeners would be too. Yeah,
Nick, you're the marketing guy. Whip up some literature for us.
Should that, instead of, because we don't have a lot of photos to go with this because they don't exist, like, should I whip up press releases for Facebook instead of photos?
That'd be so good. That'd be so great.
I mean, we have extra time now that we're home all the time. I'll see what I can do. I just want to go. I was thinking more on names, and I don't have a brand name for mine yet, but in an ode to Ferrari using numbers to name their cars, Tristan, you're going to hate this. I was thinking of like, what do you guys think of like a number to name the vehicle itself, and then with letters on the trim? So, like, for instance, I'm just going to use, because it has like a somewhat decent ring to it, I'm just going to use my area code just for right now. So you start off, like, the low end one, like, would be the 262S for like 262 standard. And then the middle one would be 262R for race. And then the top one would be 262T for track or something like that.
Okay. I mean, that would obviously work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty tried and true formula.
Right.
As long as you don't then change. As long as you don't change it 30 seconds later. So if you do that, then you're in Cadillac territory.
Yeah, right. I'm not. No, that's gonna be it. That would be
when they came out with the XTS. It wasn't actually the letter X. It was just a variable.
Right. Exactly. Who knew?
Who knows what this letter is going to be?
So that'd be my initial thought for mine, with like 30 seconds of thought. But no, that's awesome, guys.
I know that I need like full word names. I don't know. I'm going to be thinking about this even after this episode. There's got to be something.
We can follow up. We can follow up like next episode. Andrew, naming update.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do that.
Have you made me
I'll
progress?
find something.
I will. Guys, that was a really, really cool bit of content. I'm super excited to get this out to people. Anything else to tie this together before we wrap up and get the people out of here?
I don't think so. I mean, I just wish that it was. I wish that it was more realistic than it actually is, because it feels so close, and yet you know in your head. That's right. But you know in your head, just like I talked about before. It's like once you start considering, like, you have to pay people and they gotta have space. It's like, yeah, I know.
You gotta
but
hire
who cares?
HR.
That's just.
Well, finance.
I don't know. I think that when someone from Rivian hears this, they're going to steal all of Tristan's ideas.
I worry about things like that on this podcast all the time.
Yeah.
Well, this is the episode. This is when it's actually going to happen.
Even if not just for me. Yeah, even if not just for me, for all of us. Like, we come up with some pretty good ideas, and I'm worried that they're just going to be taken from us someday.
Yeah, they will be.
Well,
Don't worry.
I'm gonna answer this two ways. There's two angles we can take here. One, not enough people listen to us yet to be worried about it. Or two, if I do come out with press releases, legally that could be like date of first use if we want to apply for a trademark.
There we go.
Oh, hey, look at this guy. Look at this guy.
Huh?
We got a thinker over
here. I'm going to go with option one and say not enough people are listening yet for us to be really worried about it.
And now he's a pessimist.
But still.
Yeah, what the hell?
Awesome. But hey, anyone listening out there, we want to know what your coach builds would be, right? We appreciate you sticking with us. We appreciate you listening. We don't want you just to listen. We want you to interact. We want you to participate. So what would your coach builds be if you had a blank slate? What was your dream independent craft car that you would want to build? So let us know. We mentioned already how to find us online, emails and socials and all that kind of stuff. Also, we want to mention, be sure to leave us a review if you get a chance, preferably a good one. We'd appreciate that. Or wherever you're tuning in, wherever you're listening from, hit that subscribe button for us. It's not going to cost anything. You're just going to get notified whenever we put out any new content. And like I mentioned last week, we're all stuck at home. You've got more time. What harm is there in this? Just hit that subscribe button for us. We really appreciate it. If you're really into what we're doing and you'd like to support us monetarily, thank you in advance, number one. You have two options to do that. You can go to patreon.com/checkenginepodcast or on our homepage at anchor.fm/checkenginepodcast. There's a support button. You can hit there to make a donation or a pledge. Every cent that's pledged is put towards making this podcast a better experience for you, the listener. None of it goes back into our pockets. We're not doing this to make money. We're doing it because it's fun, and we want to make this better for you. So again, thank you in advance for that if you choose to do so. Before we sign off, Tristan and Andrew, who or what are we sending thank you shout outs to?
Oh man, I totally forgot to think of something. Hold on. Do me last.
All right, I'll do mine. So I would like to thank the mindless wanderings of my own brain, trying desperately to avoid thinking about anything that's on the news or how way many more cool fish Jessica has caught on Animal Crossing than I have.
Oh, see?
Okay. I would like to thank filmmakers, people who are really good at making really creative things like that, or any content creators, really, podcasters, TikTokers, spending all this time. No, really, there's some, I mean, anything to get our minds off of what's going on and what this, as we mentioned, as you call it, Andrew, like the new normal is. I've had more time to dive into more movies and series, and I haven't subscribed to a lot of these socials, but just looking over Claire's shoulder as she's tuning into some of these. Some of them are actually really entertaining on all these social pages. So thank you to all the creatives out there who are making this time at home just a more entertaining place to be. Andrew, have you thought of a thank you?
I did think of something. I'm just going to take the easy way out and thank my wife because, as we're talking about like new normal, you always worry, or at least I always worry, that the things that you're doing to keep yourself entertained and sane are just going to annoy the shit out of the other person, or in my case, the only other person in the house. So like playing guitar or recording a podcast or playing video games and like buttons clicking and mice clicking, even working video conferences. You just like, that is something that's constantly in the back of my mind. And she has not gotten annoyed. So, I mean, bless her.
Yeah.
Well, bless all significant others that live with us. It's on my end too. It's kind of like we take time to ourselves. Like we'll just take an hour and go in separate rooms.
Oh, for sure.
Just to kind of do that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, but no, I'm right there with you, man. That's a good thank you.
Awesome.
So thank you to wives and significant others. And as always, thank you, the listeners, for your continued support. We love hearing from you. We love recording this little podcast for you. And we can't wait to speak to you again. But until then, stay safe, stay sane, stay sanitized, stay away from one another, and take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you soon.